Good evening, students. Welcome to the session. So, today we have the discussion around the topic of TDS, TCS, advanced tax from your module. So, I hope you have revised this particular topic as I had mentioned to you last time. And in case you have any questions regarding the trust, also, you can please feel free to ask me. I hope you have gone through the questions of that particular topic as well. So let us start with this topic of TDS and TCS, which is deduction, collection, and recovery of tax. So we'll start with the each section one by one, starting with the basically the deduction of the TD tax, which is called as tax deduction at source. So that is one of the mechanism, right, which is available to pay the taxes through the deduction by the payer, right? Now, Section 192 is talking about the deduction of the tax at salary, right? When is 192 is applicable? The 192 is applicable when the payment is being made for the salaries, right? When the payment is being made for the salary. How do you deduct the tax? What is the manner of deduction? You have to deduct at the average rate of tax, right? Here, who is the payer? The payer includes the resident as well as non-resident. Meaning, let's say, for example, if a foreign company is making the payment to an employee in India, whether it is required to deduct the TDS, the answer is yes, it is required to deduct the TDS, right? Who is going to be the payee? The payee is going to be again any person. It can be resident, it can be non-resident. Correct? So the payer and the payee can be any person. So let's say, for example, if a foreign company is making the payment to a non-resident employee who has, let's say, performed the services in India, then in that particular case also there is the TDS which is applicable, and the TDS rate will be at the average rate of tax, which is going to be basically your slab rates, right? How do you find the slab rates? As per the Finance Act Part 2 Schedule 1. Okay. What is the timing of the TDS? When do we need to deduct the TDS on salary? Yes.
At the time of payment.
Correct. At the time of the payment, you need to deduct, right? Now, there are few things which one should keep in mind or the employer should keep in mind. So, basically, when the TDS has to be deducted, how does the employee decides the slab rate? Yes, how does the employee decides? How does the
Average
employer
monthly,
decides?
average monthly salary.
That is fine, but what is the slab rate that they will decide? Like whether the 115 BAC or whether they have to deduct in the old regime. So how will they decide that?
Employee has to tell him before filing this return.
Before filing the return, no. So usually they take the declaration, right? So the employer who is the deductor has to ask for the information from all the employees regarding their intended tax regime, right? Like whether they want to go for 115 BAC default or whether they want to opt out and go for the old tax regime, right? And upon the intimation, the deductor will compute the income and the tax, right? And in the intimation, the employees are also asked regarding if they have any other income apart from their salary income, right? So the employee can intimate the employer about any other income, like let's say dividend, interest, right? Or any salary from any other employer, loss any under the head house property if the employee is intending to opt out of the default tax regime, right? So the employer will take that also into consideration while calculating the TDS. So an employee can inform about any other income, right? Not being any losses, but only under the head house property, any loss if they are opting out of 115 PAC. right? So then the employer will take that into consideration and accordingly calculate the tax. Now, whether once the employee has, let's say, opted out of 115 BAC or has, selected 115 BAC itself, they are not opting out. Will it become final for the employee to file their return also as per that particular regime?
No, ma'am, he can go for any.
Correct. So, if the intimation is made by the employee, that would not amount to exercising the option of 115 BAC, like opting out of it or going for it. The employee is free to decide that while filing his return of income. So, obviously, once the employee has intimated to the employer, he cannot change with the employer. Like he cannot tell the employer, mid of the year that no, now I don't want to go for the old regime. I want to continue with 115 BAC. That is not possible because that will increase the compliance burden for the employer. So once he has exercised something, the employee is required to go with the TDS as per that regime only, at least with the employer. Of course, he can, change it at the time of filing the income tax return. What if the employee does not make any intimation?
Then default tax exam will be.
Yes. So if the intimation is not made by employee, it shall be presumed that the employee continues with the default regime and has not exercised the option to opt out of the 115 BAC. In that particular case, the employer will deduct as per the 115 BAC itself. Okay? Yes. Now, it is possible that during the year, the employee may have more than one employer. They may change the employer. So again, they can give the detail about the earlier salary to the new employer and about the TDS deducted by that employer. So that, what happens is that there is no double counting of the slabs that is happening. Fine. Any questions so far? Fine. Further, when the employee claims any kind of deductions, like, Chapter 6A deductions, if they are opting out of 115 BAC, when the employees are basically, let's say, claiming the interest on house property loss, if they are opting out of 115 BAC, they are claiming HRA. The employer is required to obtain the evidence or the proof for estimating the salary and computing the TDS. So what will be the proof for HRA? They have to obtain the name, address and PAN of the landlord if the rent paid is more than 1 lakh. In case of claim of leave travel concession, they have to obtain the evidence of the expenditure for the train tickets. If there is deduction of interest from house against the house property, then they have to obtain the name, address and PAN of the lender of the loan. For deduction under Chapter 6A, they have to obtain the evidence of the investment or the expenditure. Right? So, the employer, when he is deducting the TDS, any concessions, any relief that the employee is claiming, the employer has the responsibility to obtain the evidence or proof of that. Right? Without which the AO can hold the employer as liable for not deducting the TDS properly. Fine. So that is section 192 of the TDS provision. Then we have section 192A, which is TDS on withdrawal of the Provident Fund. Now, when does the tax happen for the withdrawal of the Provident Fund?
When 5 years service is not completed and before that he withdraw, then this will applicable
Correct.
about
Very good.
50,000 or more.
Correct. So to discourage the premature withdrawal, right, they have this condition that if the employee withdraws the Provident Fund before the continuous service of 5 years, right, the withdrawal would be subject to tax. This premature withdrawal will be subject to tax, right? So the tax on the withdrawal, how it will happen? So the TDS is provided under 192A, which is 10% on premature withdrawal from the employee's provident fund scheme. Are we clear? And this has to be deducted at the time of payment. And the limit is there is 50,000. Fine. Any questions? Okay. Then we have next section 193, which is interest on securities. So who is the payer over here? Who is the person responsible for deducting?
Domestic companies.
Domestic companies, yes. And basically every person who is paying the interest on security, not just domestic company, right? Because interest on security can be security issued by the government. It can be on the debentures issued by any local authorities, by any corporations, by any companies, government companies. It can be any. It is interest on security. So every person. Payee is a resident. What is the TDS rate? 10%. What is the threshold? 10,000. And what is the timing? It is payment or credit, whichever is early. Are we clear? Yes?
Yes.
The exemption is there in respect of non-deduction of TDS on any security of the government. Right? There are certain notified securities. Securities to LIC, GIC, right? There is one more exception where the TDS is not to be deducted when the interest is paid on securities. We discussed in the last lecture itself. Yes. Interest to a business trust via special purpose vehicle. When SPV pays the interest to the business trust on any security, SPV is not required to deduct the TDS, right? So that is also exempt. So that is section 193. Next we have section 194, which is TDS on the dividend. So who will be the payer here?
Companies only.
Domestic company, right? Here it is domestic company only, it is dividend on shares. What is the rate of TDS?
%10.
It is 10%, right? What is the threshold here?
It is 5,000 and 10,000.
10,000. It is 10,000. The threshold is 10,000. So no tax is to be deducted in case of an individual shareholder, not corporate. Corporate, there will always be TDS, where the dividend is less than 10,000. What is the timing? It has to be made before the payment of the dividend or before the distribution, right? There are certain exceptions where the TDS will not be applicable. If the dividend is paid to again LIC, it is paid to a business trust by a special purpose vehicle, right? We discussed that day itself. When it is paid by a unit of an IFSC, which is engaged in the leasing of the aircraft, right? So in that particular case, TDS is not to be deducted. Fine. Next is section 194A, interest. Other than interest on securities. Who is the payer here?
Any person, ma'am.
Every person? Yes. Who is the payee? Resident, right? Now here the payer also includes the individual HUF whose total sales, gross receipts or turnover from the business does not, exceeds rupees 1 crore or 50 lakhs if he exercises the profession in the immediately preceding financial year. So let's say I want to deduct the TDS for the previous year 26-27. So which year turnover I should look at?
Twenty-five, 26.
Yes, we should look 1 year prior, not of the same year. Fine. Now, here, what is the timing again? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the rate of TDS?
10%.
10%. What is the threshold?
It is 50,000.
Yes.
50,000 for without senior citizen and 1 lakh for senior citizen.
Yes. It also depends on what or who the payer is. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
It is not straight away 50,000. So, basically, if the general limit is 10,000, right? General limit is 10,000. However, if the payer is a bank or a cooperative bank, right? Or a post office, then in that particular case, the limit is 50,000. So if it is others, if the payer is others, it is 10,000. If the payer is a bank, a cooperative bank or a post office, the limit is 50,000. And in case the payee is a senior citizen, then the limit is 1 lakh. Now the bank may have multiple branches. So do you calculate this 50,000 limit qua a branch or the bank in totality?
It is total, ma'am, 50,000.
Total bank or branch wise? There is a circular with respect to this CBDT circular. What does it say? Yes. So the CBDT had given a circular regarding the deduction of tax at source in respect of payment of interest on the FDs by the banks. So whether it has to be considered qua each branch or it has to be deducted at the bank level. So the CBDT had clarified that this limit is not to be applied where the banks have a core branch banking solution software, a CBS software.
ये सर हो सकता है कोई टेक्निकल ग्लिच वगैरह हो। बात करता हूँ सर। हेलो।
Is the screen visible? Okay. So basically, we were on this point of the core banking solution, right? So if the bank has adopted the core banking solution, then each branch does not need to deduct TDS. Otherwise, it has to go on the branch level. Are we clear? Yes or no? Any question? Any doubt? Yes? Okay. Now, there are certain exceptions where the TDS on interest is not applicable. Which exceptions are there? Yes. What are the exceptions? Where TDS is not applicable. Yes, interest paid by a firm to partners. Is TDS applicable on that? Yes. Is interest TDS applicable on that? No, right? So TDS is not applicable on the interest paid by the partnership firm to the partners. There is no TDS. Yes or no? Then interest paid in respect of the deposits with a bank, saving bank deposits. I'm not talking about the FDs and RD. In respect of the saving bank deposits, right? The TDS is not applicable. Does the TDS get deducted when you get on the saving bank deposit? The answer is no. In that particular case, the TDS is not applicable, right? So if the interest is paid by a firm to a partner, the TDS is not applicable if paid on the saving bank account. Yes or no? Are you with me? Yes. Okay. Then TDS is not applicable in case of interest paid by a cooperative society other than a cooperative bank to a member, or income paid by a cooperative society to another cooperative society. So, interest paid to a cooperative society other than the bank to its members or to another cooperative society. So, if one cooperative society pays the interest to its members or to another cooperative society, this cooperative society should not be a cooperative bank. In that particular case, the TDS is not to be deducted. Clear? Interest on the interest which is paid in respect of the deposits with a cooperative society which is engaged in the carrying on of the banking business. But these should be the saving bank deposits, not the fixed deposits, not the RDs. So interest paid on the deposits, saving bank account deposits with a cooperative society. Right? In that particular case also, the TDS is not attracted. Right? In that particular case also, the TDS is not attractive. Yes or no? This should be not other than bank. Yeah. Then interest paid by a cooperative bank on the payment of the interest on time deposit. There the TDS is to be deducted. Yes or no? When you pay the interest on the time deposit, you have to deduct TDS. When the cooperative bank pay interest on the saving bank account deposit, they don't have to deduct TDS. Yes or no? Any questions, any doubt? Yes. What if the cooperative bank pays the interest to a member cooperative society? Whether there will be TDS? Yes. So if a cooperative bank pays to a member cooperative society, it will have to pay the TDS. Right? So a cooperative society is required to deduct the TDS under 194A on the interest paid by it to it is not required to deduct TDS on the interest paid by it to a member or to any other cooperative society. Are we clear? Yes or no? However, a cooperative society will be liable to deduct the TDS if the turnover of the cooperative society is greater than 50 crores in the preceding financial year and the interest is rupees for more than 50,000. Right? Or 1 lakh in case the payee is a senior citizen. Are we clear? In that case, the interest paid to a cooperative bank or a cooperative society to its members or to another cooperative society will be subject to the TDS. Clear? Yes or no? Fine. Then there are other exceptions on which the TDS is not applicable. Interest paid to the banking companies, cooperative banks, financial corporations, LICs, Unit Trust of India, interest on the compensation awarded by the Motor Accident Claim Tribunal, where the amount is less than 50,000, interest paid by a special purpose vehicle to a business trust. In those cases, the TDS will not be applicable. Further, the TDS will also not be applicable in case of any interest on deposits with the saving bank account. Okay? Any questions, any doubt? Now, there is one case that I would like to discuss over here. So, what happens is that, until the case is pending before the court, the court sometimes demands that the security be kept of the money in the fixed deposit until the case is decided. Now, the interest that is paid on that security, the TDS on that interest, in whose PAN it should be deducted. So, these fixed deposits are kept in the name of the Registrar General of the court during the pendency of proceeding. So, till the court passes the order, it is not known that who will get that money. And it is not even ascertainable like what will be the year in which they will get the money. So, tax is to be required to be deducted at source under whose PAN? Yes, under whose name the tax is to be deducted? So, the CBDT has clarified that interest on the FDRs made in the name of the Registrar General will not be subject to TDS till the matter is decided by the court. Once the court decides the ownership of the money, then the provision of 194A will be applicable. Are we clear? Yes or no? So let us solve few questions from the module on this particular point. Examine the TDS implication under 194A in the cases mentioned here. On 1st October 2025, Mr. Harish, age 45 years, made 6-month FD of 12 lakh at 9% with the ABC Cooperative Bank. The fixed deposits mature on 31st March 2026. So, whether this cooperative bank has to deduct the TDS, yes or no? Please tell me. Yes? Yes, students, faster. Whether a cooperative bank is required to deduct the TDS? Yes, right, they are required to deduct the TDS. 12 lakh into 9% into 0.5 months, 0.5 year, right? The TDS is deductible at the rate of 10% because it's a cooperative bank. Next, on 1/6/2025, Mr. Ganesh, age 35 years, made 3 9 months FDs of 3 lakh carrying 9% per annum with Dwarka branch, Janakpuri branch and Rohini branch of XYZ Bank, a bank which has adopted the CBS. The fixed deposits are maturing on 28 February 2026. Yes. Whether the TDS is to be deducted? Yes, students. So here they have adopted the CBS as I told you. Right? So here you have to take the aggregate interest, not the branch wise. So 3 lakh into 9% into 3, it is with each of the branch, right? Into for 9 months. So if the total interest exceeds 50,000, you have to look for the branch wise. Then if the branch has adopted the CBS, the 10% of 60,750 is required to be deducted as the TDS. Last one, on 1st October 2025, Mr. Rajesh, aged 40 years, started a 6 months recurring deposit of 2 lakh per month at the rate of 8% per annum with PQR Bank. The recurring deposit matures on 31st March 2026. Yes, whether there will be TDS applicable here? So here also, if you look at it, the interest does not exceed 50,000. It is only 28,000. So in this particular case, there will not be any TDS. Fine. I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay. Let us move to the next then. Section 194B. TDS on winning from the crossword puzzle and the race horses and lotteries. Right? Who is the payer over here? Any person. Who is the payee? Any person. What is the threshold? 10,000. What is the TDS rate? 30%. So if the payment in respect of single transaction exceeds 10,000, then the TDS has to be deducted at 30%. In case where the winnings are wholly in kind or partly in cash, partly in kind, but the cash is not sufficient to meet the liability of the TDS, then the person responsible for paying before releasing the winning will ensure that the tax has been paid. So he will have to pay the tax before releasing the winnings if the winnings are in kind or partly in cash and partly in kind. Are we clear? Yes or no? Very simple. Okay. So let's say for example you get a car as part of your winnings. Then in that particular case, the payer or the deductor has to ensure that before the prize is released in the favor of the person who has won the game, he has to pay the tax. So how he can do that? He has to collect it from the winner, a sum equal to the tax deductible at the source on winnings in kind before releasing the winning. Are we clear? Then we have section 194BA. winnings from the online gaming. Again, who is the deductor over here? Any person. Who is the deductee? Any person. The TDS is 30%, right? And this has to be at the end of the financial year at 30%. And the TDS timing is on the withdrawal. If there is withdrawal from the account, from the game account, or they call it as a user account, then the tax shall be deducted at the time of withdrawal on the net winnings which are in that withdrawal at the end of the financial year. Right? And where the winnings are partly in cash, partly in kind, or wholly in kind, then again the deductor is required to pay the amount before releasing the winnings. Are we clear? So how do you calculate over here? So here you have to see what is the balance in your user account. You have to calculate on the net winning. Net winning is equal to A plus D minus B plus C. This should be D. Okay. So what is A? A is equal to the amount withdrawn from the user account during the financial year. D is the closing balance of the user account. B is the aggregate amount of non-taxable deposit made in the user account by the assessor. And C is the opening balance of the user account at the beginning of the financial year. Right? So, this is how you compute the net winnings at the year end. If you are withdrawing, then in that particular case, you have to just take A minus B plus C. A is basically the amount withdrawn, and B is the amount of non-taxable deposit, and C is the opening balance. Because when you are withdrawing, you will not know what is the closing balance. And when you do the subsequent withdrawal, again you do the A minus B plus C plus E, where E will become the net winnings which have been already taxed under 1194BA earlier during the financial year at the first withdrawal. Are we getting it? So that there is no double taxation. So what is non-taxable deposit? The amount deposited by the user in his account. What is taxable amount deposited by in the user account, which is not a taxable deposit? Which is like, some amount that is given to them, some vouchers or something of that sort. Now, what if the user has a multiple account? So the user account shall include every account of the user, which is registered with the online gaming intermediary, where the taxable or non-taxable deposits are created. And each user account shall be considered for the purpose of calculating the net winnings and the deposit withdrawal or the balance. What if there's transfer from one user account to another user account? If there are multiple user accounts, then that is not considered as withdrawal. That is not considered as withdrawal. What if the user gets some kind of bonus, some incentives, some promotional money, some discount, which can be used for playing the online games and which cannot be withdrawn technically? That also will be ignored for the purpose of calculating the amount B, C or D. Right? So if you cannot withdraw, that is basically not your income. So let us understand with the help of example. Let's say for the opening balance is 0. So that becomes my C. Let's say I have deposited in wallet 5,000. That is a non-taxable deposit which becomes B. Let's say I have winning, let's say rupees 3,000 and a closing balance of 8,000. 5 plus 3, 8,000. Okay. And I have withdrawn entire 8,000. So there is no closing balance. So 8,000 is A, which is my withdrawal amount, plus D is 0 because there is no closing balance, minus the deposit, non-taxable deposit B 5,000 plus the C is also 0 because that is my opening balance. So what I'm getting taxed now on, what is my net winning? 3,000. Let's say I played a second game and I earned 10,000. 6,000, right? Sorry. And I deposited another 10,000. So my B becomes non-taxable deposit 15,000. My net winnings is 3 plus 6, 9,000. Right? I have withdrawn the entire amount. 24,000. So 24,000 will be A. D is 0. There's no closing balance. Minus B is my total deposit 15,000. C is 0 because there is no opening balance. E is what is taxed earlier, 3,000. So now you will not be taxed on double. But you have to take into consideration the aggregate so that in case anything which is not taxed earlier, which has been left out, can now be taxed in the subsequent withdrawal. I hope this is clear to everyone. Yes. Now the CBDT has come up with some kind of the FAQs in respect of the this online winning. Next, if there are multiple user wallets or multiple wallets under one user, how the net winning is to be computed with respect to multiple wallets? So the CBDT has clarified that the user account will include every account of user which is registered with the online gaming intermediary and where these deposits are credited or withdrawal is allowed. Therefore, each wallet which qualifies as a user account shall be considered as a user account for the purpose of net winning. And whenever there are multiple user accounts of the same user, each user account shall be considered for the purpose of calculating the net winning. So if a user has multiple user accounts with one deductor, then for the purpose of the TDS, each of these user accounts is to be considered. But if they transfer from one to another, that will not be considered as the withdrawal. Right? However, if let's say for example, there are multiple platforms that the deductor has, multiple gaming platforms, and it is not possible for him to integrate the multiple user accounts across the platform, then in that particular case, the deductor has the option to calculate the TDS for each platform separately. Are we clear? Any questions, any doubt? Okay. So if the deductor is deducting separate TDS for each user account, if they have multiple platforms, then in that case, if he withdraws from one platform and pays to the another, that is considered as withdrawal. But if the deductor is having multiple user wallets under one TAN itself, it's not a problem. Right? Then you transfer from one user account to another, that is not considered as withdrawal. Now, if a user borrows some money and deposits in his user account, will it be a taxable deposit or a non-taxable? So, the CBDT has clarified what is non-taxable. That where the user borrows the money, it shall be considered as a non-taxable deposit only. Because this is not taxable. It doesn't matter it is from already taxed income or it is not chargeable to tax. So where even if he borrows the money and deposit, if it is not taxed anywhere, it will be considered as non-taxable. As I said, if any bonus incentives are given, they are taxable deposits. The taxable deposit will increase the balance in the user account and that is not allowed to be a deduction because that is something that you have earned. Right? That would form part of your net winning. And on that, the TDS is applicable. Only the non-taxable deposits, which have already been taxed earlier, if you borrowed the money and deposited it, it's a non-taxable deposit. However, in case where there are certain coins, coupons, vouchers which are given, that is also considered as taxable deposit. However, if any coins, currency are given which can be only used to play the game and which cannot be withdrawn, in that particular case, These are considered as non-taxable deposit. Are we clear? Any questions so far? Yes or no? Yes, students, is it clear? Yes. Now, when do we consider that there is a withdrawal from the user account? So transfer from one user account to another user account maintained with the same online gaming intermediary is not considered as withdrawal or deposit. However, when the amount is withdrawn from one account to another account, then it is withdrawal. Right? And when there are some coupons which can be used for coupons given for purchase of goods or services, which you can withdraw and use it later, that is also considered as withdrawal. So that we need to see that, what is the withdrawal, what they can withdraw. However, if the winnings are so less than that, it does not exceed 100 rupees, right? Then in that particular case, the TDS will not be applicable. They have given this relaxation. Okay? Any questions, any doubt? Now, when the winnings are in kind, how do you value that? So the valuation would be based on the fair market value of the winnings in kind. However, if in the case where the intermediary has purchased the winnings before providing it to user, then it will not be fair market value, it will be the purchase price. Or if the winnings are manufactured, then it will be the price which the intermediary charges to the customer. Otherwise, it will be the fair market value of the winnings. Okay? Is this clear to everyone? Yes or no? Okay? Fine. Let us move to then the next provision, which is 194BB. Winnings from race horses. Who is the deductor? A bookmaker or one who arranges the horse racing. Who is the deductee? Any person. What is the TDS? 30%. What is the threshold? 10,000 for single transaction. What is the timing? At the time of the payment. Clear? Fine, very simple. Next, we move on to section 194C, payment to the contractors and the subcontractors. Very important. Now, payment to the contractors and the subcontractors. 194C. Who is the payer? Yes, who is the payer? Any person other than individual or HUF or AOP BOI. So any person, it can be the government, it can be a local authority, it can be company, it can be a cooperative society, it can be any trust, it can be any partnership firm, right? If it's an individual HUF, AOP or BOI, their total sales, gross receipts or turnover from the business should exceed 1 crore in the case of business or 50 lakh in the case of profession in the preceding financial year. Who is the payee? Any person. What is the threshold? 30,000 or aggregate of 1 lakh during the financial year. Right? So 30,000 as a single payment or 1 lakh in total during the financial year. What is the timing? Payment or credit, whichever is earlier. What is the rate? The rate is in case of individual or HUF pay, it is 1%. In case of others, it is 2%. Right? Now, what is the covered under 194C? We said contractor or subcontract. So, it says that contract of work. Now, what is work? Work is defined. Work includes, it's an inclusive definition. It includes the advertising, broadcasting and telecasting, including the production of programs, carriage of goods or passengers by any mode of transport other than railway, catering, right? And manufacturing or supply of a product according to the specification of the customer by using the material purchased from either the customer or its related party, meaning job work. So if you purchase the material and give the work, you perform the work, that is not covered under the definition of work. If you purchase the material from the customer and does some work on that, basically you perform job work, that is when the TDS is applicable. So let's say, for example, if there is a bag manufacturer, he gives me the bag for labeling and printing. Now the labeling or printing work that I do on bag, the bags are purchased by me from the customer itself. That is where the payment will attract the TDS under 194C. Are we clear? So if there is no manufacture or supply, for example, if it's a construction contract, again no TDS. If the value of the material is indicated separately in the invoice, again no TDS on the material value. Now what is the exception to 194C? When 194C is not applicable? If there is payment in the nature of transport charges, right? And the person owns less than 10 goods carriage at any time during the previous year. The person who is engaged in the business of plying, hiring or leasing goods carriage and has furnished a declaration to this effect along with the PAN. Right? In that particular case, the TDS under 194C is not attractive. So, there will not be any TDS if the business is of the plying, hiring or leasing goods carriage and the contractor owns less than equal 10 goods carriage and furnishes the declaration and the PAN. Or the payment is made for the personal use. Right? In that particular case also, no TDS is required to be deducted. Now, there are certain circulars and notifications with respect to this that we need to look into, and then some cases also. Let us have a look at. Deduction of tax at source on the payment of gas transportation charges by the purchaser of the natural gas to the seller of the gas. So, in case the seller of the natural gas, right, is selling the natural gas, and as a part of selling the natural gas, he will transport the gas to the purchaser till the point of delivery, where the ownership of the gas will pass to the purchaser. Now this entire contract, even though it includes the transportation, is a contract of sale, because the liability to protect the goods, to protect the gas, is with the seller, because he is responsible to deliver this in proper condition till the factory of the purchaser. This is not a works contract, and therefore the TDS is not applicable on the gas transportation charges paid by the purchaser to the seller of the gas. However, if the transportation charges are not paid to the seller of the gas, but to a third party transporter, let's say one who is operator of trucks, either by the purchaser or the seller, then in that particular case, the TDS will be applicable. However, in that case also you need to see whether the transporter has less than 10 goods carriage and he furnishes that declaration. Clear? Next circular is applicability of TDS provision on payment by broadcasters or television channels to production houses for production of content or program for telecasting. So where the payments are made by the broadcaster to the production houses for production of content or program, right? Whether these are payment of works contract or whether these are contract for professional or technical services where the TDS is required to be deducted under 194J. So the CBDT in this case has clarified that a distinction is to be made between a payment for production of the content as per the requirements of the broadcaster and payment for the acquisition of the broadcasting rights. So let's say, for example, if Dharma produces a movie, right, and it gives this movie rights to Netflix, that is payment for acquisition of broadcasting rights. Versus, let's say, for example, if Sony Live requests Dharma to produce an ad, that is a payment for the production of the content as per the specification of the broadcaster. Now, where the content is produced by the production house as per the request of the broadcaster and the copyright of the content also gets transferred to the broadcaster, that is a works contract. Yes, that's a works contract. However, in case where the broadcaster only gets the broadcasting right of the content, there is no right for carrying out any work, then in that case, it is not subject to 194. Are we clear? Yes, any questions, any doubt? Fine. Next is TDS on GST component comprised in payments made to resident. In case there is any GST component, then the TDS shall not be deducted on the GST component. Very, very simple. Next is applicability of the TDS provision on payment by the transporter to the truck operators or owners for hiring the vehicles. So, here, this is a Supreme Court ruling in the case of Sri Chaudhary Transport Company. Here, the firm had entered into a contract with a cement company for transporting the cement to various places in India. Now, the transporter did not have its own transport vehicles, so it engaged the services of cement. And the cement company made the payments to the transporter after the deduction of TDS. And when the transporter made the payment to the truck operator, the transporter did not deduct the TDS. So Supreme Court here observed that the contract which is entered into is between the transporter and the cement company. And which makes it clear that it is the responsibility of the transporter to transport the cement in a proper manner. The cement company had no contract with the truck operator. Right? There is a different set of contract between the transporter and the truck operator. So, that contract was not in the knowledge of the cement company. So, this is a case of the subcontract. And there existed two contracts, one between the transporter and cement company, another between the transporter and the truck operator. So Supreme Court here opined that the transporter was not acting as a facilitator or intermediary between the consignor, between the cement company and the truck operator, because they did not have any contract between them. The contract of the company for the transportation of its goods was only with the transporter, and it was the transporter who then further hired the services of the truck. So the payment made by the transporter to the truck operator was also a payment in the nature of subcontract, where the TDS should have been deducted for hiring of the vehicles. Are we clear? Any questions, any doubt? Yes or no? Yes, students? Any doubt so far? Okay. Let us look at some of the case laws then before we go to the next section. The first one is in the case of the salary, whether the tips received by a hotel company from its customers and distributed to the employees would fall within the meaning of salary. This is Supreme Court ruling in the case of ITC. So, generally when you go to the hotel, you give the tips to the hotel itself, and then they, you add to the Zomato account whatever tips are there, and then they pay it to the employees. So whether when the tips are given to the employees, whether the employer, the hotel is required to deduct the TDS. Supreme Court said there is no vested right on the part of the employee to claim the tips, because these tips are purely voluntary amount. It is not something a contract that the hotel is bound to give them the tips. So the tips that are paid by the employer to the employees are not in the connection with the contract of employment. These are received by the hotel in fiduciary capacity as trustees that were received from the customers and which they have to give to the employees. There is no reference to the contract of employment because these are not mandatorily to be paid by the hotel to the employee. So these cannot be regarded as profit in lieu of salary, and therefore these are only the payments received by or on behalf of an employee, and therefore the TDS was not required to be deducted by the hotel. The customer who paid the tips also is not required to deduct TDS because he is not the employer. So on these tips there will not be any TDS. Clear? Yes or no? This case we already dealt with. Is 194A applicable in respect of interest on fixed deposit in the name of Registrar General of High Court? We discussed this already, right? Yeah. We have the Sri Mahalakshmi Transport Company case. Can the payment made by an assessee engaged in the transportation of building and material and transportation of goods to the contractor for hiring the dumpers be treated as rent for machinery or equipment to attract the TDS under 194 So here the question was that when the payment is made by the assessee, who is the transporter of building material and goods, to the contractors for hiring dumpers, just now what we saw, right? Whether it is for the rent or whether it is in the nature of contract of work. So the Gujarat High Court held that the contract which the entered into for the transportation of goods, it is not for renting out of machinery. And therefore the 194I will not be applicable. Here this is in the nature of contract for shifting of goods from one place to another, and therefore this is a work contract on which the TDS will be under 194C. Are we clear about this? Yes, any question, any doubt? Fine? Yes or no? Okay. So then let us move to the next section, 194D. Insurance commission. Who is the payer? Any person wants who pays this insurance commission, right? Who is the payee? Again, any person, right? Then what is the TDS here, rate of TDS is 2% in case of resident other than domestic company, 10% in case for company. What is the threshold? 20,000. And what is the timing? Credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Okay. Next is section 194 DA, payment in respect of life insurance policy. Who is the payer here? The insurance company, life insurer. Who is the deductee? Resident. What is the TDS? TDS is 2% on the amount of income, not on the amount of insurance compensation paid. So income means the compensation minus the insurance premium which is paid. What is the threshold here? 1 lakh. Okay. So let us take an example over here. So let's say Mr. X is a resident, is due to receive 4.5 lakhs on 30th June 2025 towards the maturity proceeds of the LIC, for which the sum assured is 4 lakh and the annual premium is 1,25,000. Right? So in this particular case, first you need to see whether this is applicable or not, because if it is exempt under 1010D, then there is no question of TDS. So when it will not be exempt, when the annual premium exceeds 10% of the sum assured. What is the annual premium here? 1,25,000. What is the sum assured? 4.5 lakh. Here the annual premium is more than 10% of the maturity proceeds. And therefore, the maturity proceeds will not be exempt under 1010D. If it is not exempt under 1010D, then the TDS is required to be deducted at 2% on the amount of income. What is income? 4.5 lakh minus 3,75,000. How 3,75,000? 1,25,000 is 1 year premium. It was taken on 2022. So for 22, 23 and 24. For 3 years you paid the premium. So for 3 years you will do 1.25 into 3 minus 4.5 lakh on the 75,000. The TDS is required to be deducted. Are we clear? Now, you will say this is less than 1 lakh. So, you have to see the threshold of the sum paid. But for the TDS purposes, you have to consider the income. But when to see the applicability, you need to see what is the sum paid. The sum paid is 4.5, which is more than 1 lakh. Obviously, there will be TDS. Next one, Mr. Y. A resident is due to receive 3.95 lakhs on 31st December 2025 on LIC policy taken in 2012, for which the sum assured is 3.5 lakh and the annual premium is 26,100. So, premium is 26,100, sum assured is 3.5 lakh, and this is before 1/4/2012. So at that time, the condition was that the annual premium should be less than 20%. Now, this is 3.95 lakh. 3.5 lakh, sorry. And the premium is less than 20% of the sum assured. So in that particular case, no tax is required to be deducted on 3.95 lakh. Last one, Mr. Z, a resident, is due to receive 95,000 on 1/8/2025 towards maturity proceeds of LIC taken in on 31/7/2017, for which the sum assured is 90,000 and annual premium is 10,000. Now again, this is after 31st March 2012, and the annual premium which is there is more than 10% of the sum assured. Right? So in that particular case, what is my maturity proceeds? 95,000. Now this is less than 1 lakh. So therefore, there will not be any TDS in this particular case. Are we clear, students? Yes or no? Yes? Any question? Any doubt? Fine. Okay. Next is payment in respect of deposits under the National Savings Scheme. Who is the person responsible? Any. Who is the payee? Any person. Right? What is the TDS? 10%. What is the threshold? 2,500. What is the timing? Payment or credit, whichever is earlier. Very simple. Next is 194G, commission on the sale of lottery tickets. Any person can be the payer. Payee is also any person, right? And what is the TDS rate over here? 2%. What is the threshold? 20,000. What is the timing, payment or credit, whichever is early? Clear? Okay. Next we have section 194H. What does 194H is about? Commission. Payer is any person other than individual or HUF. For individual or HUF, the condition is that their turnover from the business should be more than 1 crore in case of business in the preceding financial year and 50 lakh in the case of profession in the preceding financial year. What is the TDS? 2%. What is the threshold here? 20,000. And timing is payment or credit, whichever is early. What do we mean by commission? It is defined commission or brokerages, any payment received directly or indirectly by a person acting on behalf of another person for either any services, for any goods, or in relation to transaction of any asset, valuable article, or anything. Are we clear? Yes or no? Now
Yes,
there is one. Yes, good. There is one circular which is applicable in respect of this TDS on the commission. So, the CBDT circular talks about the payment by the TV channels.
Ma'am, I had a query.
Yeah.
See, like abhi tak I was studying with my old study module. So now the rates are different. So what should I refer? I should go for a new module or kya karu? What to do?
Yeah, you should go for at least for direct tax, you should refer the new module. Otherwise, there may be chances that you may miss out on something.
Okay, so I should purchase this new module for whole set. No?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
And suggested का भी तो फिर how will we be solving suggested? RTPs में तो आंसर पुराने ही होंगे if we go by old RTPs.
ओल्ड आरटीपीज में यस पुराने होंगे बट जो आपके रेलेवेंट अटेम्प्ट के आरटीपी है उसमें ही आप रेफर करो. पुराने वाले आप रेफर कर रहे हो अगर so just see that your answers should be in line with the current developments that you will have to just take into consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry for disturbance.
No problem. Okay, so there is one circular in the context of 194H, which is talking about the payment by the TV channels to the advertising company for procuring the advertisement, right? So what happens is that there are advertising agencies, right, which get money from the client for advertisement. Now, these advertising company will then reach out either to newspapers or TV channels to put out this advertisement. Let's say, for example, Nirma, right? It wants to list its ad. It will pay to an advertising agency. And they will book a slot either with the TV channel or they will buy a particular page with a newspaper. Now, here the question of the applicability of the TDS on these payments, right? When the client pays to the advertising agency, under which section do we deduct the TDS?
(194H) only.
C. Work includes advertisement, right? Work includes the advertisement, first thing. So when the client pays to the advertising agency, it will deduct TDS under 194C, right? Because the work includes the
Contractor.
contract, yes, advertisement. So when Nirma pays to the ad company, it will deduct the TDS under 194C. When the ad company pays to Doordarshan or any channel, now what happens at that stage? At that stage, there will be no TDS under 194C. There will not be any TDS under 194C. Here, what they will do is they will retain certain commission because they are bringing the work for the Doordarshan for canvassing advertisements. So the question is on this amount, whether there will be TDS under 194H.
No, because Doordarshan is a government sector company, so it will be one means no TDS will the TDS will not be applicable. TCS will be there.
That is fine. But what if it's Sony Live or some other company?
It has to be deducted. Means we need to deduct
Yeah.
it.
So when this media company makes a payment to the channel, there will not be any TDS for the reason that we discussed, that for the production of any content, right? When they make the payment, right? It is not subject to TDS under 194C.
Okay.
So,
No, it's not 194C, though I can understand because it was like
yeah,
on. It's not a contract because
not a work contract. Yes.
they are bringing, so they will be charging on commission, charging some commission from us on our income what the clients they are providing.
Yeah.
So, but 194H, why it is not applicable? Can you please confirm?
Yeah. So, in this particular case, the question is whether the fees taken by the advertising company from these media companies are commission or discount for attracting the 194H. So the CBDT has clarified that the TDS is not attracted on these payments made by the TV channel to the advertising agency because these are not in the nature of commission technically. Because commission is defined. It is a payment received by a person acting on behalf of another person. Now, these are not technically acting on behalf of me. Right? So, these are not acting on behalf of me technically, if you look at it. They are an independent advertising agency. I have not hired them to do this for me. I may pay them certain amount. But here, this is not subject to the TDS because this is technically not in the nature of the commission. And there is also a Supreme Court ruling in the case of Prasar Bharati. So, what did the Supreme Court here rule that? That the commission or brokerage covers any payment received directly or indirectly by a person acting on behalf of another person. Now, here the relationship, if it was a pure agency agreement, if they had agreed into a contract that this advertising agency is acting on behalf of the assessee, on behalf of Doordarshan, and they were binding the assessee whatever contracts that they will do with the customer, then the TDS will be applicable on the amount retained. However, if there is no basically agreement between them on these retentions, then in that particular case, if the relationship between the media company and the advertising company is that of principal to principal, then TDS is not tracked. So you have to look into the agreement to see that whether the relationship between these two companies is that of principal to principal or it is in the contract of agency. So, if these are acting on principal to principal, then the CBDT circular applies. However, if they are acting in the nature of principal and agent as per their agreement, then you have TDS under 194H as per Supreme Court ruling in Prasar Bharati. Are we clear?
Yes, clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more important ruling that we need to discuss. is in the case of Bharti Cellular Limited, again a Supreme Court ruling. Now, what is this ruling in regard to? Let us try and understand. And then we'll discuss one more ruling in the case of Ahmedabad Stamp Vendors Association. First, we'll look at the Bharti Airtel. Now, when you purchase these SIM cards, like earlier, there was this SIM card purchase from some vendors who used to give some recharge kit also, right? Recharge kit of this. There used to be scratch cards and all of that.
Yeah.
So these telephone service providers like Airtel, Vodafone, whether they are required to deduct the TDS under 194H on the amount retained by these vendors when they sell these recharge kits. So what these vendors do is they buy the recharge kits at a discounted price from Airtel. Let's say if it's 50 rupees recharge, they will buy it at, let's say, 20 rupees. They will sell the 50 rupees recharge kit at 50 rupees. So the 30 rupees is basically their amount that they will keep with them. Right? So whether on this discounted price, they are required to, the Airtel is required to deduct the TDS, which is nothing but their commission technically. So the Supreme Court in Bharti Cellular observed that the TDS in the 194H is attracted when there is a principal-agent relationship. Now you have to decide again here whether the party acts as an independent contractor or whether it acts as an agent. How do you decide that? You look at the agreement, you look at how they are carrying out the work, whether they are intending to make the profits for their own self or they are bound by the principal, or they are entitled to some pre-arranged remuneration only. If the party is working for its own self, how will you know that? They are not able to, like, let's say the customers are not coming, they will now start selling, they will now start, selling at even 40 rupees. So they will reduce their profit margin. But if there are many customers, they will start selling at 50 only. Right? So if they are working for their own self, they try to maximize the profit. They will be responsible for their results. Then they are independent and not agent. Now this distributor, which is there, these buy the goods, like they buy these recharge kits on their own account. Whether these get sold in the market or not, it is not the concern of Airtel. They are going to stock it. If they are not sold, their loss. So the profit made is basically the margin which they earn between the sell and the purchase price. So basically they are acting on their own. These are franchisee or distributor and they buy it even without there may not be any actual sale. Are we getting it?
Yes.
194H casts a responsibility when there is the relationship of the payer and the pay. And it does not it does not ask, to deduct the TDS, even when the payment is indirectly made by the payer to the agent. So it asks for that. But here, in this particular case, the Airtel is not paying any income to the particular person. The Airtel does not even know at what price they are going to sell it. It is impossible for Airtel to deduct the TDS because they do not know at what price eventually they will sell. So here the Supreme Court noted that they are working on their independent account. They are working on principal to principal relationship and therefore the TDS will not be attracted in this particular case. Clear?
Yes, clear, please.
Next case which is there is in the context of the stamped paper vendor. So again, the stamp vendors, what they do is they purchase these stamp papers and sell it at a higher price. So the basically government allows only the licensed stamp vendors to take the delivery on the payment of some discount, and they sell the stamp paper at a full price. Now, here again, they do not technically are into the nature of the agent. They are acting on their own account. It's a principal to principal basis, just like the recharge vouchers. So here also Supreme Court held that in Ahmedabad Stamp Vendor Association that there is no requirement to deduct the TDS under 194H, because this is a principal to principal contract and not that of the principal to agent. Clear? Any questions, any doubt?
No, ma'am. Clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a break over here, and then after the break, we'll start again.
Sure.
Okay. Yes. to discuss on 194H before we move on to the next section is Singapore Airlines Limited. Let me share the screen so that you understand what is the case. Again, this is a Supreme Court ruling. Now, again, this is in the similar context where what happens is that the air tickets which are sold, right? Now, there is some base fare for the air tickets, first of all. Right? There's a base fare which is set by an international air transport organization. And the airlines have a mandate to keep the base fare as this much. They can sell at a price lower than the base fare, but they cannot go more. Although they call it as a base fare, but it's a maximum fare. So the airlines can sell their tickets for a fare lower than that, but they cannot go higher. Right? So basically, when the airlines set the price of the airlines, they have to share the list of the fares to the DGCA. Right? And the prices that are set can be lower to the base fare, it cannot be higher than it. Now, what happens is that the ITA, which is International Air Transport Association, they would also sell some blank tickets to the travel agents like Make My Trip, Go IBO, right? To sell these travel tickets. Now, there's an arrangement between the airline and Make My Trip, right? Which sets out the terms and conditions with respect to how they would sell the flight tickets, what would be their remuneration, right? So when Make My Trip sells the ticket, a fixed percentage of a commission, which is also again designated by the International Air Transport Association, would be paid to a travel agent as the base or the standard commission, which is again on the base fare, right? Which is not on the fare of the airline, but on the base fare. And this is independent of at what price they would be, the airlines are selling the tickets, because this commission is a standard commission on the base fare. This is subject to TDS under 194H. There's no problem with that. Now, when the airline or when the Make My Trip will actually sell the tickets, again they have the liberty to sell it at a different price by giving certain discounts, right? All of that. Now, airline has one price, Make My Trip has another price, right? Now, airlines have no control over the price at which the travel agents will be selling the ticket. So, let's say the airline has set the price as 3,000. The travel agent is selling the ticket at 3,400. The base fare may be 5,000. So, the 400 rupees that is earned by the travel agent over and above the fare that is quoted by the airline would be agent's own income. Right? This is a supplementary commission. Now, whether the question is the airline should deduct the TDS on this supplementary commission. There is a TDS on the base fare, on the standard commission. There's no problem. But whether on the supplementary commission there should be the TDS, that's the question. So let's say, for example, this is the base fare for Wingfly airline, which is set by ITA, 1 lakh. Airline has set some price for itself. The travel agent has quoted some another price. Now the travel agent has agreed to a 7% commission, standard commission on the base fare, which is 7,000. The fare quoted by the airline is 60. Fare charged by the travel agent is 80,000. So 20,000 is a supplementary commission. So the question is, on this, there is TDS, there is no problem. But on this also, should there be TDS? So the Supreme Court here noted that 194H does not distinguish between direct and indirect payments. Right? there is a relationship of principal and agent between the airline and the travel agent. Right? The travel agent does not buy the tickets. Unlike the stamp papers, unlike the recharge vouchers, travel agents are not buying the ticket. Whatever travel agent are doing, they are doing for the airline. They cannot sell the ticket without the authorization of the airline. Right? So they are basically agent. There is a contract of agency. Now they can go above the net fare at whatever price they want and earn the supplementary commission. And retaining that supplementary commission, they are in the requirement to send the balance ticket fare to the airline. Right? So basically they are operating as an agent. So therefore the Supreme Court noted here that this is a contract of commission or the contract of agency, and therefore the TDS is required to be deducted even on the supplementary amount. Are we clear? Okay. Yes or no? Any questions, any doubt? Fine. Let us move to the next section then. 194I, TDS on rent. Who is the deductor? Any person other than individual HUF, right? For individual HUF, again the same condition. What is the condition? That their turnover or gross receipts from the business should be more than 1 crore in the preceding financial year, or in the case of profession, it should be 50 lakh in the preceding financial year. Clear? Same condition. Now, what is the TDS rate? TDS rate is 2% for plant and machinery, equipment, right? And 10% for land or building and furniture. What is the threshold? Yes, what is the threshold for TDS?
%2 on
2%.
plant and machinery and 10%.
Correct. So that is the rate. But what is the threshold?
1 crore in business and 50 lakhs for PGB.
No. What is the threshold for TDS? Like when, after what amount the TDS has to be deducted? So the TDS has to be deducted after the, yes. So basically the threshold that has to be complied when the amount of the rent cross is 50,000 per month or the part of the month, right? 50,000 is the threshold. And this is with respect to each co-owner. It is not a combined threshold. If there are two co-owners, in that particular case, it is the threshold for each of the owners. It is not that, for one owner, there are two owners, so the combined threshold of rent is 50,000. Each owner threshold will be 50,000. Okay. Now here, there are again certain circulars and notifications of the CBDT which we need to take into consideration. First is payment by the customers on account of the cooling charges to the cold storage owners. Whether this is for the rent or is this in the nature of contract of work. So the CBDT has clarified that the cold storage owners do not give to the customers a clear demarcated space, or they do not rent out any machinery of the cold storage. The function of the cold storage is to preserve perishable goods, and the storage of goods is just incidental. Here they are not giving you a demarcated space to use. So here the arrangement between the customer and the cold storage owner is basically a contract. Therefore, the TDS will be under 194C and not under 194I. Clear? Next is a CBDT circular for lump sum lease premium paid for acquisition of long-term lease. Again, the CBDT has clarified that the lump sum lease premium, which is like, one-time upfront lease charge, for a long-term lease, it happens that they pay a lump sum lease premium at the initial payment itself, which is not adjustable against periodic rent. And this is for the acquisition of long-term leasehold rights. These are not payment in the nature of rent within the meaning of Section 194I. Okay, so there is no TDS on this particular aspect under 194I because this is the acquisition of the long-term leasehold rights and not in the nature of the rent. This is a premium paid, and therefore the TDS will not be attracted in this case. Clear? Next is remittance of the passenger service fee by an airline to an airport operator. So what happens is when the airline operates its airline at the airport, right? It is required to pay certain charges to the airport authorities. Now, whether these are for the usage of the land or these are just the charges that are paid for the airport. So, in this particular case, there are multiple judgments to this effect, wherein it has been held that these are the charges for the usage of the airport. The use of the land or building is just incidental. It is not something that they are paying for the land or building, right? So in this particular case, the payment by the airline to the airport authority is not in the nature of rent. Because for qualifying it as rent, the payment must be for the use of land or building. Here it is mere incidental or minor or insignificant use of the land. And basically the charges are for the airport facilities. And therefore there will not be any TDS in this respect. Okay. Next is payment of lease rent or supplemental lease rent made by a lessee to a lessor being a unit of IFSC for lease of an aircraft. So again, there is some relaxation which has been given through the central government notification that the TDS in the 194I will not be attractive on the payment of lease rent, right, by a unit of IFSC for the lease of aircraft because they have the exemption for the 10th assessment year. So for the years that they are claiming the exemption, there will not be any TDS required. Are we clear? And the same is applicable even for the lease of ship. When the GST is charged on the land, there will not be any TDS on the GST component. Okay? Any questions, any doubt?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Fine.
Okay.
Now, again, in connection with this, there are certain case laws. Let us look at it. Are landing and parking charges paid by the airline company to Airport Authority of India in the nature of rent to attract the TDS under 194I? Same thing. Just like passenger service fee for the use of facility, they also charge some landing and parking charges. Again, these are for providing a combined facility for landing the aircraft, right? Which include the air traffic service, ground safety, communication, installation, all of that. These are not for only the use of the land. The land use is just incidental. So in this particular case, there will not be any TDS attracted under 194I. Clear? Next case is Indus Tower, Delhi High Court. Payment for the use of infrastructure facility, such as mobile towers. So, they install the mobile towers on the terrace of the buildings. Whether there will be TDS under 194C or 194I. So, the payment for the use of the towers which are there. right? To operate the network, the mobile operators that they pay for usage of the equipment. The intention is to use the equipment or plant and machinery, right? And therefore, in this case, there will be TDS under 194I and not 194C. Even under 194I, whether there will be TDS for the use of equipment or for the use of the premises. So whether TDS will be 10% or 2%. So the court has held that the TDS will be 2% because the payment is essentially in the character of use of the equipment, even though it is installed in premises, but the use of premises is incidental, so therefore the TDS will be at the rate of 2%. Okay. There is this Allahabad High Court ruling which says that this 50,000 limit is to be seen qua each co-owner and not qua the total payment of the rent. Right? So this is what we already discussed. Fine. Any questions? Any doubt? Fine. Okay. Let us move to the therefore next particular section. (194I), or before we go to 194I, let us look at 194. I think I have not mentioned here. Okay. Yeah. 194IB. What is 194IB? This is covering any individual or HUF who are not covered by 194I. Which individual or HUF are not covered by 194I? Yes. Yes.
Can't tell, ma'am. अभी तो नहीं याद है.
Which individual or HUF are not covered by 194I? Individual or HUF whose total sales from the business does not exceed 1 crore or
Okay.
50 lakh in the preceding financial year. Right?
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
you are individual or HUF whose total sales, gross receipts or turnover exceed 1 crore for business or 50 lakh for profession in the preceding financial year, you are covered under 194I. For others, other individual or HUF who are not covered under 194I, 194IB is there. Okay. Now here, who is the payee? Resident. What is the TDS rate? 2%. Here it is 10%. Here it is 2%. Right? And here, what is the timing of the deduction? What is the timing of deduction? Timing of deduction is at the time of credit of the rent for the last month. Right? Or the payment, whichever is earlier. Okay? So credit of the rent for the last month of the previous year, or in the last month of tenancy if the property is vacated during the year, or at the time of payment, whichever is earlier. And what is the meaning of rent? Here the rent covers the rent for the land and building, plant and machinery, equipment, furniture, everything. Here the rent only covers the rent for the land and building. Here it is only for land and building. What is the threshold? 50,000 per month. And here the payer is not required to obtain any TAN. There is no requirement absolutely to obtain any TAN, meaning for other payments, whenever the deduction is required to be made, the TAN is to be obtained by the payer. Here there is no requirement to obtain the TAN. Here they can just deduct the TDS only on the basis of PAN. Otherwise, the payers are mandatorily required to obtain the TAN if they have to deduct TDS. Fine. Next is section 194 IA. What is 194 IA? Transfer of immobile property other than the agricultural land. If it is rural agricultural land, it is exempt, right? Transfer of rural agricultural land is not a capital asset. Rural agricultural land is not a capital asset. Yes or no? If you transfer the urban agricultural land, then there will be TDS. Who is the deductor? The transferee. Deductee is the resident transferor. Timing is credit or payment, whichever is earlier. The TDS is 1% of the consideration or the stamp duty value, whichever is higher. The threshold is if the consideration or the stamp duty value is less than 50 lakh. Then there is no TDS. And the threshold has to be seen as aggregate for all the transferors and all the transferees. Unlike in the case of rent, where I told you that this 50,000 is the limit for each co-owner. But for this transfer of immobile property, they have clarified that this threshold of 50 lakh is qua all the co-owners or the qua all the purchasers. So basically, let's say for example, there are two buyers and there are two sellers. Property can be co-owned, right? And the consideration is 55 lakh. Both are 50-50%. In this case, the consideration, if it is more than 50 lakh, there will be TDS. Here also, the buyer need not obtain TAN. There is no requirement to obtain TAN in this particular case. What is the timing of deduction? At the time of the credit or at the time of payment, whichever is earlier. Now, the consideration will include all the charges, will include the charges for the club membership fee, car parking fee, electricity, water facility, maintenance, any charges which are incidental to the transfer of immobile property will be. Okay. Let us solve a question from the module on this. Mr. X sold his house property in Bangalore as well as rural agricultural land for a consideration of 60 and 15 lakh respectively to Mr. Y. He has purchased the house property and the land in the year 2024 for 40 and 10 lakh respectively. Stamp duty value on the date of transfer is 85 lakh and 20 lakh for the house property and rural agricultural land respectively. Examine the tax implication in the hands of Mr. X and Mr. Y and TDS implication, if any, in the hands of Y, assuming both are resident Indian. First, we look from the X perspective. X has sold the property. First, we talk about the rural agricultural land for 60 lakh. What will be the impact? Yes. What is the impact? Yes, faster. So you will see 50C, right? So what is the stamp duty value of the property as on the date of transfer? It is 85 lakh. Is it more than 110% of the consideration? The answer is yes. 60 lakh is the consideration. Right? Yes or no? They have sold the house for 60. So is it 110% of 60 lakh? Yes. So 85 lakh will be taken as my full value of consideration. My cost of acquisition is 40 lakh. Right? This is 40 lakh. And this is purchased in 2024. And I have sold the property on 1st August 2025. So this is less than 24 months. So there will be a short-term capital gain of 45 lakh. Clear? In the hands of Mr. Y, First, we talk about the rural agricultural land. Whether 56 to 10 will be attracted on the rural agricultural land? Answer is no. Since the term property received for inadequate consideration includes only capital asset. Rural agricultural land is not a capital asset. So 56 to 10 is also not applicable. Right? Now, whether he has received the house also for inadequate consideration? He has purchased the house for 60 lakh. The stamp duty value is 85 lakh. Right? So again, the question is whether the difference, which is 20 lakh or 25 lakh, whatever, exceeds 50,000? Yes. Whether it exceeds 10% of consideration? Yes. So this 25 lakh would be taxable in the hands of Y under 56 to 10. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? What will be the TDS implication? Simple. Since the stamp duty value and the sale consideration is more than 50 lakh, Y is required to deduct the TDS on what amount? On the higher of the stamp duty value or the sale consideration. Stamp duty value is higher, 85 lakh. So on that, we will have to deduct the TDS. And for rural agriculture land, TDS will not be attracted. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Let us move to the next section then. Section 194 IC. This is for the consideration paid in cash for the joint development agreement referred to in 45(I). What is 45(I)? When the owner of the land agrees to transfer the land or give the possession of the land to a builder to develop the property on that land. Right? He's not selling the land. He is just giving the possession of the land to the builder to develop the property on it. The capital gain is attracted under 45(I)(a). Right? So whenever the builder gives any cash consideration for this, on that cash consideration paid, there will be TDS under 194 IC, which is 10%.
Ma'am, can you please repeat this once more?
Sure. So whenever there is a landowner, right, the builders usually take the land possession from the landowners and develop the flats on that land or the building on that land or a project on that land, because the lands usually belong to the farmers or villagers, right? So when they develop the land, right, when they develop the property on that land, they agree to give the landowners a share in that property plus some cash consideration.
Okay.
Right? So landowner is not selling the land. He's not transferring the ownership. He's just giving the possession to the owner, possession to the builder to just develop a property on that land. So the landowner still remains the owner of it. But transferring the possession is also considered as transfer under 247. So there will be capital gain under 45(I). So when the cash consideration is paid by the builder to the landowner, on that cash consideration, there's a TDS at the rate of 10%. Clear? Okay?
Just a minute. Yes, clear.
Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, cash consideration doesn't technically mean only in cash. It will also include the bank transfer also. But anything which is not in kind. When the builder gives the share in this building,
Any capital gain in the hands of the owner.
yeah. When the builder gives the share in the building, on that component there is no TDS. It's only when he transfers to some bank or cash component, on that there is TDS under 194 IC. Next section, 194J, TDS on professional, technical services, director remuneration, royalty, non-compete fee. Who is the deductor? Any person other than the individual or HUF. For individual or HUF, it is only when their turnover of business more than 1 crore or professional 50 lakh in the preceding financial year. right? What is the TDS rate? 10% is the TDS. 2% in case of technical services, 2% in case of royalties for distribution or sale or exhibition of the cinematographic film, and 2% if the payee is engaged in the operation of call center. In that case also, the TDS is 2%. Okay,
Okay.
let me just write it here itself. For professional services, 50,000. For royalty, 50,000. For non-compete fee, it is 50,000. There is no threshold for the director remuneration. Okay? There is no threshold for the director remuneration. Fees for professional services, 60,000. So only on the professional services, there will be TDS. On technical services, there will not be any TDS because there's a separate threshold which is given. Okay? Now, let's say for example, here where the TDS is not attracted, where the payments are for personal nature. In that case, if the professional services are for personal use, there will not be any TDS. What is the meaning of professional services? Legal, medical, engineering, technical consultancy, interior, advertising, profession notified in section 44. What is fees for technical services? Managerial, technical or consultancy services. Right? So, that is basically the section 194J. Now again, there are certain circulars which you need to consider. Let me just reshare the screen of the module. So there is one particular circular with respect to the third party administrator. So what happens is when you go to a hospital and there is an insurance claim, right? So you would see in each of the hospital there are TPA department, which are known as third party administrator, who are sitting on behalf of the insurance companies. What they do is when you want to make a payment, like under the cashless scheme or under any non-cashless scheme also, you go to the TPA's desk. They will take all your information. They are sitting for the insurance company and they will settle these claims to the hospital. The hospital will get the payment from the insurance company. So here, whether the TPAs who are making the insurance payment to the hospital, right? They are not technically making the insurance payment, they are basically clearing your dues to the hospital because you have the insurance. Whether there is a requirement to deduct the TDS and the 194J on the payment made to hospital because these are professional services. So the CBD has clarified that in this context, the services rendered by the hospital are medical services and therefore the provision of 194J are applicable to payment made by TPS to the hospital. Here. Next is the Supreme Court ruling in the case of Kotak Securities. The case was where the charges are paid by the members of the stock exchange for availing the online trading services, which is facility stock exchange provides to all the members. Whether this is a fees for technical services to attract the TDS under 194J. So the Supreme Court in this case noted that these services of online trading facility given by the stock exchange to members is a normal service. It is given to all the members. This is not a customized service. This is a general service. This is not a specialized service or an exclusive service. For classifying any service as a technical service, it has to be a customized, a unique, a specialized service which requires some skills to be used and given to one customer. These are general service. General services are not the technical services. When a customer approaches you to give some sort of services, that's a technical service. So this is not a technical service and this will not attract the TDS. Next is consideration for the use or right to use a computer software. Is it royalty? So when you buy a computer software, whether you can say that you've got the right to use the computer software, because the definition of the royalty includes, as per explanation 4 to 916, it includes the consideration for use or right to use a computer software would be royalty. So the explanation clarifies that the transfer of all or any rights in respect of a right, property or information includes the transfer of right to use a computer software, which classifies as royalty. So whether when you purchase a computer software, you have to deduct the TDS under 194G. So in that context, the central government has given a notification which says that these software payments, right, when you purchase it as a reseller and when you resell to the customer, when you purchase it from manufacturer, you have to deduct TDS under 194G. If you purchase from a non-resident manufacturer, you have to deduct TDS under 195. But once you have deducted the TDS, and then either there is an end user or a reseller, subsequent reseller, they don't have to deduct the TDS. Because if they acquire without any modification, if one reseller does not modify the code of the software, he just sells as is to the customer or to another reseller. In that case, the TDS is not to be deducted by the customer or the second reseller because the TDS has already been deducted in the first tranche. And if the reseller gives that declaration that he has already deducted the TDS in the first tranche to the customer, then the customer need not deduct the TDS again on that purchase of software. Clear? Fine? Okay. Let us move to then the next section. So next is 194K income in respect of any units. So in respect of units of mutual fund, when you get any income, the TDS has to be done under 194K. What is the threshold? 10,000. Fine. And the TDS rate is 10%. Next is 194M. What is 194M? So if the payer is individual or HUF and is not covered by 194J, C or H. J, C or H. Why will not be covered by J, C or H? Maybe his turnover is less than 1 crore in case of business or 50 lakh in case of profession. Or he is making the payment for professional services for personal purposes. Right? So if he is making payment for contract, commission or professional services, technical services, royalties, non-compete are not covered here. Only these three. And he's not covered by 194J, C or H. And if the payee is a resident, then the TDS will be 2%. Timing will be at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Threshold is 50 lakh rupees. And in this case, the payer need not obtain the TAN. So unlike 194J, C or H, they have to obtain the TAN. Here, they need not obtain the TAN. Are we clear? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Next section is 194NA. TDS on compulsory acquisition of land other than the rural agriculture or urban agriculture land. So whenever the compensation is paid for compulsory acquisition, if it's a rural agriculture land, it's not a capital asset, so no capital gain. If it's an urban agriculture land, so compulsory acquisition of urban agriculture land, any compensation is exempt under 1037. So on that also there's no TDS. So this is on other than the rural agriculture land or urban agriculture land. So if the payer is any person, payee is a resident, the TDS will be 10% and the threshold is 5 lakh. Okay, very simple. Next is section 194N, TDS on cash withdrawal. What is this? Yes,
Which one?
TDS on cash withdrawal. Yes, what is the limit?
If cash is exceeding rupees 1 crore during any previous year, cash withdrawal.
Correct, correct. So, in case of 1 crore, what is the threshold for the corporate? So basically, in terms of the bank, cooperative bank, post office, right? If the withdrawal is done, which is more than 1 crore, in that particular case, the TDS will be 2% of the withdrawal amount. It is not on entire 1 crore, but the sum exceeding the 1 crore. Sum
Yes.
of withdrawal exceeding the 1 crore, there will be TDS of 2% of the withdrawal. And the TDS will be at the time of payment. However, if the payee, recipient, withdrawal, not the payee, the recipient is a cooperative society, the threshold limit is 3 crores for the cooperative society. Further, if the recipient has not furnished the ITR for all the 3 preceding previous year, and the time limit under 139(1) is expired, then if it is a cooperative society, if the withdrawal is more than 20 lakh and less than 3 crore, TDS will be 2%. Right? And if it is more than 3 crore, TDS will be 5%. For other than cooperative society, if the withdrawal is more than 20 lakh, less than 1 crore, TDS will be 2%. For withdrawal more than 1 crore, TDS will be 5%. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this is section 194N. Next is section 194P. What is section 194P? Section 194P is in respect of a specified senior citizen who receives the pension, right? And he maintains an account with bank in which he receives the pension. And he just receives the interest income, he doesn't have any other income. And he's more than 75 years of age, greater than equal to 75 years. Then the bank is to deduct the TDS, right, on the total income after considering the Chapter 6A and the rebate under 87A of the specified senior citizen. So basically, senior citizens will not be able to file their income tax return by their own. So what they have said is that if they are maintaining a bank account, only one bank account, where they are receiving the pension and where they just get the interest income on that bank account, they don't have any other income, they don't have any other account. Right? So in that particular case, the bank will deduct the TDS on the total income. The bank will ask the declaration from the senior citizen with respect to his total income, Chapter 60 deduction, and the rebate. Rebate, they get calculated automatically. So basically, the Chapter 60 deduction that they have to keep. And the regime that they want to want, whether 115 BAC or the normal withdrawal. Are we clear? So that is section 194P. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Next is section 194O. What is section 194O? TDS on payment by an e-commerce operator to an e-commerce participant. So let's say there is a seller of goods who registers on the Amazon. So Amazon is the e-commerce operator. E-commerce operator can be resident or non-resident both. E-commerce participant has to be a resident. So this seller will sell the goods on Amazon, right? Amazon, let's say the goods are sold at 1,000 rupees to customer. Amazon will retain the commission of 200 and will pass on the 800 to the seller. So here the TDS has to be deducted at 0.1% of the gross amount of sale of goods or services. That is 1,000 rupees. The timing will be at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. What is the threshold? For individual or HUF, the threshold is 5 lakh. For others, it is not applicable. There is no threshold in the case of others. Okay?
Okay.
Now, let's say there may be multiple e-commerce operators in this case. Let's say there are 2 e-commerce operators. How do we deduct the TDS in that particular case? So, let's say for example, if there is a hotel which has registered on Make My Trip. Make My Trip is allowing you to pay through Amazon Pay. So, there are 2 e-commerce operators. So, who is required to deduct the TDS? Whether Amazon or Make My Trip. So, in that case, the CBDT has issued the guidelines which says that in this particular case, they have to agree to an arrangement that if one of the e-commerce operator is deducting the TDS, there will not be again the TDS on the same transaction. So, they have to enter into an arrangement that let's say Make My Trip only will deduct it and Amazon Pay then will not be required to deduct any TDS. So, if there are multiple e-commerce operators, then this is how it will be done. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, any doubt? Yes or no?
Ma'am, can we discuss this once more? Means like e-commerce, if there are multiple e-commerce, so how will...
Sure. So, let's say for example, if Radisson Hotel is there, it is registered on Make My Trip. Make My Trip is allowing you to pay through Amazon Pay. So now Amazon Pay is also the e-commerce operator, MMT is also e-commerce operator. Now MMT or Amazon Pay both are liable to deduct the TDS under 194. So therefore the guidelines say that they can enter into an arrangement to say that okay, only MMT will deduct and therefore the Amazon Pay will not have any liability to deduct the TDS. Okay?
Okay, from the payment received.
Yes.
Fine.
Now what if there are additional charges, like shipping fees, packaging fees, convenience fees, which are charged to the buyer to provide the services. Whether the TDS is to be deducted on, let's say, 100 rupees, which is a cost of product, or on all the charges also, let's say, 10 rupees are the charges, packaging charges. So the guidelines say that the TDS has to be deducted on the gross amount, which will be 110 and not 100.
Okay.
Okay.
E-commerce.
So the TDS has to be on the gross amount and not on the goods price.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So even though the price may be 100, but the TDS will be on the gross amount as has been clarified.
Okay.
Plus any commission that they retain. So they may be retaining some portion as commission.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
These e-commerce operator. That would have been subjected to 194H.
Yes.
So no. Because
Yeah.
that's a commission. However, since the tax has been deducted on the 194.0 on the gross amount, there will not be any further TDS under 194H.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
Yes. Means two things are attracted. Two sections are there.
Yes. Fine. Any
Yeah.
question, any doubt?
अभी तो as of now नहीं.
What
No.
if the e-commerce operator is giving some discount? You see on Amazon that there are additional discounts over and above MRP. If the discount is given by the seller, that will reduce the price of the goods itself. But if the discounts are given by the e-commerce operator, right? So in that particular case, what will be the TDS on? Whether it will be on 100 or let's say whether it will be on 90. So in that case, the TDS will still be on 100 because the amount which will be paid to the seller will be 100. Okay?
Okay.
Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is TDS on the purchase of the goods. So let's say if the buyer purchases the goods from a resident seller and the turnover of the buyer should be more than 10 crore in the preceding financial year and the goods are purchased more than 50 lakh, then at the time of payment or the credit, whichever is earlier, the buyer is required to deduct the TDS at the rate of 0.1% of the sum greater than 50 lakh. Okay? So sum exceeding the 50 lakh, there will be TDS. And if the TDS is there under 194.0, then there is no requirement to deduct the TDS under 194.
For you.
Okay?
Yes.
Fine?
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
questions? Any doubt? Yes. And the TDS is not to be deducted on the GST component. Same as under 194.0 also. Fine? Any question? Plus this TDS under 194Q will not apply to a non-resident buyer.
I just wanted. Achha, one more thing I just wanted to ask. This 194Q will be applicable means in normal course of business also.
Yeah, in the normal course of business also.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you're counting this turnover from the business, let's say it is the first year of business, first year of incorporation. How will I see the last year turnover? There was no turnover. 194Q doesn't apply. What is turnover? It is the turnover of the business. If I have, let's say, capital gains, whether that capital receipts are also to be included? No. For counting the turnover, sales or gross receipts, you have to only consider the business. Okay?
Oh, yes.
You don't need to consider anything else. Fine?
Okay.
Next is, let's look at the module. Section 194R, which is deduction of tax at source on benefit or perquisite in respect of business or profession. So, whenever the person is giving any kind of benefit, whether in cash or whether in kind, which is arising from the business or exercise of a profession, and in that particular case, the TDS has to be deducted at the rate of 10%. The threshold is 20,000. Now, who is the payer here? Payer can be any person other than individual or HUF. For individual or HUF, they have a limit of 1 CR. For business, 50 lakh for profession in the preceding financial year. Right?
Okay.
So, for 194R, it should be a benefit or perquisite. It can be in cash, it can be in kind. Whether it is in the form of capital asset, yes, there also you have to deduct. Even if you give a capital asset to the other party, right, some benefit is given. Let's say, for example, loan waived off. That is subject to 28(4). Any rent-free accommodation given. any shares given to the director, any gift given to the person. Right? This is the benefit of perquisite. And the deductor is required to deduct the TDS under 194R. If it is in kind, he has to make the arrangement of the payment of dividend before he releases the benefit. However, in case of the settlement or waiver of loan, that is a benefit of perquisite because the loan is waived off. However, the CBDT has said in this particular case, 194R will not be applicable. They have given this relief. Whether on the discounts, TDS will be applicable. Discounts are also benefit. But subjecting the discounts to the 194R will be a challenge. So therefore, on discounts, there will not be any
TDS. Okay.
right? When 194R can be applicable, when you have the free ticket, when somebody sponsors your trip, when you get the incentives from the dealers or manufacturer. In those cases, there will be 194R. For example, some free medicine samples are given by a company to the doctors, pharmaceutical company to doctors. That is, when the doctors are employees of the hospital, the TDS will be deducted for the hospital. If the doctors are operating independently, it will be in the hands of the doctors. Are we clear? Yes or no? When the doctors are the employees, you will deduct the TDS for the hospital under 194R. Then the hospital will subsequently treat this as the benefit in the hands of the employees and will deduct the TDS under 192, sorry. When the benefit is given in kind, how will you do the valuation? Take the fair market value. Except if I have purchased the amount, I have purchased the benefit. If I have purchased the benefit before giving it to you, let's say I purchased the car and given it to you, it will be purchase price. The value of that car will be purchase price. Or if I have manufactured something, then it will be the price that I usually charge to my customers. In all other cases, it will be the fair market value. Secondly, when the out-of-pocket expenses are paid by the service provider, by service recipient in the course of the providing the services by the service provider. It's very common. You go to audit place, you charge travel expenses, food expenses, all of that, right? Now, if the bills are obtained in the name of the client, let's say air travel bill, hotel bill, you stay for audit, right? Then in that particular case, this is only and exclusively for the purposes of rendering services to the client. Then it will not be considered as benefit. But if it invoice is in the name of the auditor and I am as a client reimbursing that amount, then it is a benefit on which the TDS will be deducted. Are we clear?
Okay. Yes.
Fine.
Okay, means like composite services if the auditors are giving for some employees are appointed on auditor's payroll and they are
Not
working.
composite services technically, like let's say for example, if auditor is traveling through flight and he books the flight ticket in his own name, then if he gets a reimbursement, there will be TDS.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's say, for example, if you do a
Ma'am,
conference for the
yes,
dealer. Yes.
sorry. Means if the reimbursement is done for the employee, then it is not, this section will not be applicable now.
See, reimbursement for employee also it will be applicable. Any kind of reimbursement, it will be applicable. Only if the bills are in my name, as in the client's name, then there is no problem.
Okay, suppose any employee goes for a business trip abroad and he has to book the trip in his name or invoices in his name, then it will be applicable up.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say, for example, if manufacturer done some conference for the dealers to educate about the product.
Yeah.
That is not perquisite. But if he invites the dealer and says that, okay, you can also, travel 1 or 2 days extra, either prior or later. You can also have some leisure trip combined. Then it is a perquisite.
Suppose
So if we say, yeah,
any employee has to travel, means for business meetings and all. So in that case, if the companies are not deducting, then they are means this is a thing.
no. See, if employees are traveling, that is not a problem. It is only when you are doing a business and you get a reimbursement of the expenses that you have incurred and the bills are in your own name, then it is a benefit.
Okay.
So I'm getting it. I'm an auditor. I'm traveling for client audit, right? Let's say to Bangalore. Now, I book a flight, I book a hotel, and all of this is in my name. And then I claim the reimbursement of that amount from client. Client is required to deduct the TDS under 194. If let's say, for example, I am booking this hotel and this flight in the name of the client, like I use the client company name to bill it, then it is not a benefit of perquisite. Clear?
Okay, ma'am. Sure.
Issuance of bonus share, whether it is benefit or perquisite, no, it is not benefit or perquisite. Issuing bonus shares is not benefit. Fine?
Yes, it's
Yeah. Next is the TDS on the salary, remuneration, commission, bonus, or interest to a partner. There's TDS under 194T. TDS rate is 10%. And the threshold is 20,000. Okay.
yes.
Next one is section 196. Interest or dividend or sum payable to government. In these cases, there will not be any TDS. Okay. So this completes your TDS provision. There is one more section 194S, which is payment of any sum to any resident person for the transfer of virtual digital asset. That is covered in the class of the taxation of digital transaction. Again, there will be 1% TDS on that for the transfer of the virtual digital asset. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Now, second is to claim the lower deduction. Let's say, for example, if you do not have income or you have income below taxable limit, then for these all sections for salary, interest, dividend, contract payments, commission, insurance commissions, right? Your rent, professional fees, the e-commerce operator, all of these sections, you can apply for the lower deduction certificate. So basically you go to AO, you say that my income doesn't justify this higher rate of tax deduction because my working capital will get blocked. The AO, if he is satisfied, he will give a lower deduction certificate or a no deduction certificate. Or if you are a senior citizen and you think that you do not have too much income and the interest, bank interest on that FD interest, then TDS being deducted. So in that particular case, you can apply through Form 15H for the lower deduction. Or sorry, for nil deduction. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is the lower or nil deduction certificate. Then whatever TDS is deducted, this will be considered as your income. So let's say, for example, if 100 rupees is your income, 10 rupees is that TDS deducted, you will consider your income as 100 and not 90. And then you will claim the credit of rupees 10 against your tax liability. Okay. Now, what are the duty of the person responsible for deducting tax? He has to deduct the tax. He has to deposit it to the government. He has to file the return of income on return of the tax deduction. If there's any mistake, he can rectify it. Right? And the time limit for rectification is expiry of 6 years from the end of the financial year in which the original statement is delivered. What if he fails to pay or deduct? Then in that particular case, he would be deemed as associate default. Right? Which means there will be the interest that he will have to pay, which is 1% for every month or part of the month for which the tax was not deducted, 1.5% for which the tax was deducted but not paid. This is not applicable if the payee has furnished the return of income, has taken into account the income, and has paid the tax on that income. So in that particular case, he will not be considered as assessee in default, but he will still be required to pay the interest at the rate of 1% from the date on which the tax of filing the return of income by the payee. Okay. So
Yes.
it is not that he will not be considered as not be liable for interest. He will still be liable for interest. But he will be liable for 1% from the date of TDS deductible till the date of furnishing of the return by the payee. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Next is now the TCS. What is TCS? Tax collected at source. Okay. For TCS, let us look at the provisions of the TCS. Yes. So on lease or license of a parking lot, toll plaza, mine query, TCS is 2%. On sale of motor vehicles of value exceeding 10 lakh, it is 1%. Then on these kind of goods, when you purchase these luxury goods, wristwatch, art pieces, collectibles, yachts, sunglasses, handbags, home theater system, right? In these cases also, if the value exceeds 10 lakh, there will be TCS at the rate of 1%. For sale of motor vehicle, it will not apply to the sale by the manufacturer to the dealers. It will only apply to the sale to the customer. Okay?
Yes.
And this is applicable in case of all the assessors. Fine? Then last one with respect to the TCS is remittance under the LRS through an authorized dealer or purchase of overseas tour program package. So in case of purchase of tour package wherein you purchase the entire tour, it's not that you are purchasing only flight tickets. You are purchasing like the flight bookings, entire program arrangement, all of that. Payment is up to 10 lakhs, it is 5%. Over and above 10 lakhs, it is 20%. For remittances for the purpose of any education, and if the education is sponsored through a loan taken, TCS is nil. If the remittance is for the purpose of education other than through the loan or for medical treatment, up to 10 lakh, no TCS, beyond 10 lakh, it is 5%. If the remittance is for any other purpose, then no TCS up to 20 lakh, but beyond 20 lakh, it will be 20%. Now, whether this threshold of 10 lakh applies separately for education, for medical, for others, or is it a combined threshold? So, CBDT has clarified this is a combined threshold. This is irrespective of whether you spend 5 lakh for education, 2 lakh for hospital, 2 lakh for other purpose, it's a combined threshold. So, for first 10 lakh, for education purpose or for any other purpose, no TCS. Beyond 10 lakh, if it is for education through loan, nil. If it is for education or medical, 5. If it is for others, it is 20. Right?
Yes.
And for LRS, there is 10 lakh limit. For overseas tour program package, there is also 10 lakh. So whether again that is combined threshold, the answer is no. For LRS, there is a combined threshold of 10 lakh. For overseas tour program package, you have 5% even if it is below 10 lakh. There is no threshold. It says 5% below 10 lakh. More than 5%, more than 10 lakh, it is direct 20%. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, when you make the payment under LRS, it can be for any purpose. Medical, education, for that there is combined 10 lakh. But if you purchase the overseas tour program, then there is no threshold. Overseas tour program package should basically include everything. It's not just, if you're purchasing flight ticket, it will be under overseas tour program. It is not. Okay. Last one thing before we close the session. In case the payee does not furnish the PAN, there is a higher TDS applicable under 206AA, which is higher of rate under the Act, rate under the Finance Act, or the 20%. In case of 194O, e-commerce operator or sale of goods, 194Q, it is 5%. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is not applicable in case of a non-resident who furnishes the prescribed information, like their email ID, contact number, tax residency certificate. This 206AA is not applicable to non-resident in that case. Same thing is there for TCS also. If the buyer does not furnish the PAN, then under TCS, you have the higher rate, which is twice the rate under the Act or 5%. 1% in case of 206C1H. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Then finally, we have in this chapter the advance tax and the interest. Okay. So, advance taxes, you have the liability to pay advance tax if your income, if your tax payable is 10,000 or more. It is not applicable if you do not have income under PGBP or you are more than 60 years. Right? You have to pay before 15 June 15%, 15 September 45%, 15 December 75%, and before 15 March 100%. And in case of presumptive, you have to pay advance tax by 15th March. If you do not pay advance tax, you have interest under 234B, which is 1%. But if you have paid more than 90%, there is no interest, right? If your advance tax is falling short of the assessed tax 90%, then no interest. And you have interest under 234C, 1% for each month or part of the month for the deferment of the advance tax. And you have 234A if you fail to file your income tax return on time. Are we clear? Yes? Any questions, any doubt? Fine?
As of now, it's fine. Actually, how?
Yes.
Ma'am, overseas remittance and overseas packages both will be considered as same, na? For
No,
TD.
overseas remittance is under LRS. Overseas tour program package is where you purchase the package for the overseas tourism.
Remittance is for the business only, no? Means we need to pay somebody or
Remittance can
whatever.
be for anything. You can
Ah.
send gift, you can send inheritance, you can send for medical treatment, whatever. Remittance can be for anything. That 10 lakh limit is separate for that. Tour program is when you want to go abroad and visit the places.
When we take the whole package, like
Yes. Hotel, flight, the tour, sightseeing, all of that.
Okay. Fine.
Right?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll close here for today, and then directly, I think my next class is on 10th March. There will be, of course, the other revision lectures in between. But I have a lecture directly on 10th March, so see you at that point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
We can close the session. Yes.